Good, y'all. Welcome back to another episode on Heinous Beliefs, the podcast where we don't just talk about true crime. We talk about the dark, twisted intersection where belief systems meet bloodshed. But before we dive in, I wanted to give a quick shout out to everyone that is tuning in to the podcast right now. I have a bit of a yap session for y'all. If you're listening to this episode, I realized that I don't have a lot of personal stuff on social media. I don't really talk about my personal life. I've had a few people comment asking about my deconstruction journey, asking what I believe, asking how I got here, and all of that stuff. I just never really thought that I needed to make a video about that. I'm hoping to maybe upload it on YouTube and maybe a shorter version on TikTok, but I don't know, guys. I don't know what to tell you guys. So maybe I can do a Q&A. I don't know where I would put it. So if you guys have some suggestions, put it on the Instagram page because I really want to put something out there that, kind of gives you guys a brief overview of who Ria is, because I know that I, talk about deconstructing a lot, and I talk about religion a lot, and I talk about the world's problems a lot. But I think maybe apart from like on lives or something, when the conversations get really deep, I never really talk about myself. So I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to wait and see if some of you guys have questions, because we don't really have a lot of interaction on Instagram just yet. So I'm just going to look up some questions that I can answer for you guys on the next episode. Maybe 30 seconds. I'll give myself 30 seconds to yap really quick, say all the things that I'm frustrated about, and then I'll go into the case. You guys let me know if that's okay. If that's okay, I will do it next episode, because I really, I have things to say. I have opinions. I have thoughts. Okay. Anyway, you guys, I'm going to give y'all the regular disclaimer for this episode. You guys already know listener discretion is advised. Make sure you don't have children around. And if you do have children around, at least put on some headphones, whatever it is, because y'all know these episodes do get a bit gruesome. So again, listener discretion is advised. And before I get into the episode, I want to say thank you guys very much. Thank you for all the listens. My numbers are a bit slow, but that's because I'm not doing as much advertisement as I should. I'm not promoting my podcast as much as I should. I'm not even going to put it on y'all, because this is something that I know for a fact that I should be doing more of. Oh, yeah. But I just want to say thank you anyway to everyone that's shared it or like talked about the podcast or just recommended it. I really do appreciate it. Like I'm so grateful. Okay, I want you to know that. But if you are here for the first time, I did, say a lot in the beginning. That's usually not how these episodes go. I'm usually just kind of going straight into the case, but a few things might be changing. So if you're here for the first time, like I said, well, go listen to the other episodes and get caught up on the podcast. And then you can maybe come back here and go with this flow. Okay. All right, y'all. Roll with me for a second. Imagine you're chilling, just waking up in a little village in Limpopo or Eastern Cape. The air's crisp, the birds are chirping, the sun is creeping up like it's gonna be a normal day. You gotta get out of bed, maybe go outside to fetch some water, just take in the fresh air, but something feels off. Instead of the usual morning vibes, there's noise, loud voices, people are yelling, there's confusion, like something serious just popped off. Then you smell it, the thick, choking smoke in the air. And before you even register what's going on, you hear it screaming. Not like someone stubbed their toe. These screams were different. They sounded like something straight from a horror movie. Somebody was screaming from the depth of their soul. Why? Because somebody pointed and said, "She's a witch." And in that moment, that's all it takes. No proof, no chance to talk, no question, no protection. This is straight up jungle justice. And before anyone could blink, they tied her up, dosed her with paraffin, and set her on fire. I bet you guys are probably thinking about something you've heard from the medieval times, maybe. But you guys, nope. This happened in 2022, 2023. This happened in South Africa. Yes, in our time. And not just once in a blue moon. This wasn't a rare thing. These witch hunts are common. Hundreds of people, mostly women, mostly older, have been accused, attacked, killed. And because someone said the wrong thing at the wrong time, they lose their lives. And you probably ain't heard about it, right? That's the worst part. Most of these stories never make it past the village. They don't hit the news, they don't trend, they don't spark outrage online. It's like there's this unspoken code to keep it buried, to not talk about it like it's too shameless, too complicated, or just too dangerous to deal with. But the fear is real. People legit believe that when bad things happen, someone dies unexpectedly, a baby gets sick, crops don't grow, it's cause of some kind of dark magic. They think someone out there is casting spells or calling on evil spirits. So instead of looking at it like health problems, poverty, and just bad luck and missed opportunities, they go hunting. Who did it? Who is responsible? And who do they hunt? The vulnerable, the weird, the lonely, the introverts, the misunderstood. That's who they throw the label on. It's scary. It's heartbreaking that for some reason we still let these things happen even in today's time. Let me tell you about Anna Feti, and I need y'all to really sit with this one. This is heartbreaking, and it's one of those moments where you got to stop and ask yourself, how do we even get here? So, Anna, she was a 58-year-old woman, lived in a little village in Limpopo where everybody kind of knows everybody. And you know how small communities can be. If you don't fit in their box, you're instantly looked at as an outsider. You're looked at sideways. That was what Anna was. She was an outsider. Folks said she kept to herself. She wasn't loud. She just didn't mingle with everybody. Some folks thought she was strange. Not in a bad way, though. Just off, just different. But in a place where community means conformity, being different can be dangerous. Now, Anna had epilepsy. That's a medical condition, but in her village, no. They didn't see it that way. They saw her seizures as some kind of curse, some spiritual possession. People legit thought that she was channeling spirits when she was having a seizure or calling for evil spirits, taken over by some dark force. Instead of helping her, they just would pray over her. Instead of helping her and understanding her condition, they labeled her with evil. They labeled her as someone to be feared. Then two young girls in the village passed away. Boom. Just like that. No real explanation. And instead of looking into what happened, autopsy, something, right? They turned to Anna. They wanted answers and fast. And when the fear mixes with grief and ignorance, that's when people start looking for a scapegoat. And who was different? Who was one person in the community that did not fit in their box? Who was the one person that they labeled as evil and responsible for all the horrible things that were happening, even though she was sick herself? Anna. That's who they blamed. So it started whispers from here and there. One person said it to this person. She cursed them. She's been talking to spirits. Did you see her eyes during the last seizure? That is not normal. Those whispers grew louder and louder and louder. And you know how that goes. It only takes one loud voice and one scared crowd, and it flips that switch. The rumor turns to rage. Soon as the whole community was now filled with this rumor, they weren't looking for the truth. They wanted blood. They dragged Anna out of her home, didn't care what she was doing. They didn't care how she was dressed or anything like that. They didn't care that she was begging, crying, confused. They tied her up in the middle of the street like she was some kind of monster. Someone brought gasoline. Trigger warning, trigger warning. Someone brought gasoline. Yeah, they planned this. Somebody came prepared to burn this woman alive, and they did. They poured the gas on her, lit the match, and stepped back. And Anna, she screamed loud, raw. Please, I'm not a witch. I didn't do anything. But it didn't matter. Nobody listened, not her neighbors, not her family, no one. in that place, in that village that even grew up with her, no one did anything, not even the police. Yeah, yeah. The cops came. There were police officers at the scene, but they didn't do anything. They did not help her. They did not try to get her down. They watched the whole process. They stood back and said the mob was too dangerous. They said they couldn't stop it. Imagine that the people sworn to protect you watching you die because they're scared of the crowd. They're scared of the other people. Right. And Anna died in the middle of the street. Her body was burning while the whole village watched. And guess what? No one went to jail. No real investigation, no justice. Life just moved on like it didn't happen. That's kind of the reality we deal with beliefs, right? And the scariest part, Anna's story was not the only one. Let's break it down some more. This question always comes up. How in the hell is this still happening? It's 2025. Like, how are we still burning people for witchcraft? South Africa has a beautiful, complex mix of traditional and spiritual practices. You got Christianity, which comes in heavy during colonization. Then you have traditional African spirituality rooted in ancestral worship, connecting to nature, the spirit world and the guidance of elders. And then there's sangomas, the traditional healers, the OG spiritual doctors in their true form. They are sacred. They help heal people spiritually, emotionally, even physically. They know herbs, rituals, and how to communicate with the ancestors. These are all claims. I don't believe any of it. Anyway, just like in any system, you have folks that will misuse it or somehow find a way to harm people with it, right? These are all still belief systems. They tell families something like, your bad luck, your child's illness, that's because someone is doing it to you guys. This person over here, they're a witch. If you do this ritual, do blah, 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 then it'll, somehow loosen you from their grip. Or if you were to kill the person, you would be free. Right? It's this idea that somehow the person has powers to be causing all of these negative things in your life. So imagine somebody's baby getting sick, or their crops are dying, or they lose their job. They go to one of these fake spiritual people, right? These sangomas. That woman there down the street, yeah, her energy been off. She's the one. That's the answer that they get, and usually it's someone that the whole community has probably been talking about. The whole community has already ostracized. That's usually their scapegoat. And that's all it takes. Now that woman is a target. Now layer that with colonization. When Europeans and their missionaries came through, they demonized African spiritual practice, okay, as much as they could. They told people that their ancestors were demons, their rituals are evil, and your God's not real. So for generations, people grew up with internal wars, right? Identity crisis, people that were ashamed of their own cultures. On the other hand, they believed in Jesus Christ, in the church, in sin and salvation. But on the other hand, they still believe in spirits, in ancestors, in the power of dreams and omens. So now you have people living in this spiritual tug of war, scared to be too traditional because they don't want to be seen as satanic, but somehow still scared of the unknown and the unexplainable. So when bad stuff happens, they don't turn to science or medicine, they turn to fear. That's how it turns into a weapon. It's not just your belief, it's how people twist and justify the hate, right? They explain their hate by using their beliefs as a covering or to control others. It's not just let everyone believe what they want to believe. It's how people have twisted themselves into justifying atrocities, justifying hate, explaining themselves with some kind of spiritual covering, and that's okay for everybody. And in these murders, that weapon gets used over and over again. Now, let's get even deeper into it. Who's catching all of this heat for witchcraft and all the accusations, right? Who's facing the brunt of all of these problems? Who's the face people imagine when you say witch? It's mostly women, of course. And not just any woman. We're talking about older women, grandmothers, widows, the ones who have been around for the longest, but often got the least protection. Why? Like, why them? Because they're easy targets. A lot of these women live by themselves. Maybe their kids moved away or passed on, and they just don't have anyone looking out for them. Some might be mentally challenged, some might have mental health issues, and instead of the community coming around to help them, they get judged. Others, they just are different. Maybe they don't show up like everybody else. They don't show up to church every Sunday. They're not at every gathering. Some people are just introverted, right? I don't understand why we have to ostracize each other. This also happens in Nigeria a lot. And I'm going to be sharing some of those stories as well. Nigeria has this epidemic as well, where we label older women, older struggling women as witches. And we say, well, they're probably suffering right now because they did all these rituals and blah, blah, blah. And they're just wicked. And, there's so many stories of women being on the rooftops because they're flying and they're witches. And, no one actually ever sees it, but it's word of mouth. And that's all they need. Word of mouth is enough for you to say a woman is a witch and now deserves to be burned alive. And usually we see that it's all men doing the execution. I don't know how much clearer I have to be with this, but it's misogyny. That's where it's rooted. Misogyny. And it's sick. It's something that we don't talk about, but I think, maybe we should start raising those conversations. And even sometimes maybe these women are still in their spiritual practices and their traditional practices. Maybe they don't smile much, or they walk with a limp, or they just talk to themselves. I talk to myself all the time. Like, I can't wait to be alone because I talk to myself constantly. And I can't imagine that a time in the 21st century, somehow someone would still look at me and say, oh, you're a witch for doing that. Everyone talks to themselves. Well, honestly, I won't say everyone, but a lot of people talk to themselves. It's a normal thing to do. Like, I don't know what y'all's definition of normal is, but it's normal to talk to yourself sometimes. I don't know. And that's usually all it takes for these people, right? Once you whisper from one person to the other, folks are ready to go ahead and move on with that information and spread it. And sometimes it's not even that deep. Sometimes it's about land, it's about inheritance, it's about jealousy. It's just like weirdo beef. It could be something as simple as owning land that someone likes, and maybe her late husband left her a house on that land, and the in-laws are unhappy and they want it. They will label her a witch, and next thing you know, folks are acting like she's some kind of evil entity in the community. Take this woman, for example, Agnes Matlakala. She was 74 years old. You hear me? 24. She got blamed for a child having asthma. Yeah, that's it. Yep, asthma. My face and your face, I bet they look alike right now. We're making the same face. A damn respiratory condition. And that could have been treated with an inhaler. That could have been treated so easily with some medical intervention. But instead, they stabbed her 16 times. 16. They dumped her body like it was trash, like her life meant nothing, all because somebody needed a reason for a child that had asthma to be wheezing. And that's the thing. It's not really about magic or curses. It's about fear, control, and social policing. These women, they usually don't fit their communities at all. They want, people that are uniform to what everybody thinks. If you're too quiet, you must be hiding something. If you're too loud, you must be dangerous. If you got no man to keep you in check, you're a threat, right? Why are you living your life without a man with you? This is misogyny. It's ableism. This is ageism. It's very much rooted in belief systems. It's pretty much all kinds of prejudice rolled into one and lit on fire, okay? These women are being punished for existing outside of the mold. And we got to call that out for what it is, an excuse to erase people from society. And they don't know how else to live. You must be asking, where in the hell is the police in all of this? Like, seriously, how can somebody be dragged out of their home, burned alive, and the law just stands there doing nothing? Well, here's the raw truth. A lot of times the police show up after the damage is already done. And when they do show up on time, they still are not really doing the protecting part. See, in a lot of these villages, police forces are way underfunded and just straight up overwhelmed. We're talking two, maybe three officers trying to handle a whole town. And that's if they even come out. That's if their radio is even working, right? These officers are underpaid, undertrained, and sometimes they're too scared. They are legit scared. Scared of the same mob that they're supposed to be protecting you from. Scared of losing their own lives if they step in. And sometimes some of them are just, some of them believe in the witchcraft stuff, just like everybody else. So when someone says, that old lady put a curse on my child, they don't question it, right? They actually believe it. They are nodding their heads thinking, yeah, maybe she did. Like, she probably did put a curse on your child. You know, that's why your kid has asthma. This is the 21st century. Again, 2025, okay? Like in Anna Feti's case, people saw the cops there. They saw them stand by while Anna screamed for help. They did not move. They didn't fire a warning shot. They didn't try to break the crowd. They just stood there and let it happen. They said it was too dangerous to intervene. And maybe it was, right? But how are we supposed to trust a justice system that doesn't even try? Then you look at the data and it gets even worse. 2017 South African Police Service documented 243 witchcraft related cases, but that's just the stuff that got written down. You know how many never actually got to the police station, never actually got reported? How many got called community disputes or just brushed off like gossip? Experts say that the real number is way higher than that. Hundreds more, maybe thousands. And then the legal side. South Africa still has got this dusty ass law, just like Nigeria, in the books, the Witchcraft Suppression Act. In 1957 is when they passed that. That's right, 1957. And instead of protecting people from being accused, it basically criminalized witchcraft itself. I just don't understand this. It helped the people be able to accuse anyone of witchcraft. Because if people believe witchcraft is a crime, then in their heads, killing a so called witch feels like community justice, not murder. So, yeah, the system is completely broken. Honestly, I don't even like to use the word broken because I don't even think it was ever set up the right way. So, I think the system is working the way the system is supposed to be working, but it needs to be dismantled. The police either can't or won't step in, and the laws, they're not really helping people like Anna. They're built on fear, built on outdated views, and built without the people's interests at heart. And that's how folks keep getting away with murder in broad daylight. No consequences, no justice, just silence. Even when there was a full on confession, like someone saying, yeah, I lit her up, I set her on fire, the sentence they get, right, don't even worry about it. I'm talking in 2019, a man literally admitted to setting a woman on fire that they thought was a witch. And what did he get? 6 years. That's not justice, that's a vacation. Compared to what she went through, she screamed while burning. This is not a situation where people are just not using their resources. Most of these cases die in silence, okay? A whole village will go quiet because they want to protect those people. People don't testify. And why would they? They're scared. Some genuinely believe the victim was a witch. Others know if they speak up, they might be the next people. All it takes is to say that person is a witch. You're defending her? Maybe you are part of the coven. And there it is. You're done. That's the kind of fear that spreads fast. And imagine being a judge or a prosecutor in that courtroom. You're trying to build a case based on facts, but all you have is hearsay, fear, and spiritual panic because you're not going up against a defendant at this point. You're going up against a belief, against generations of superstition, a belief that has run so deep that they don't even know how it started. And beliefs, they don't play by courtroom rules. You could have 100 witnesses, but if they're all scared to speak, what you have is nothing. Some of these legal professionals grew up in the same culture, same village, same stories. They carry the same fear. So, yeah, it's not just about catching the killers, it's about breaking through a psychological and cultural wall. That's why people keep dying. The killers keep walking free, and justice is never served. The justice system moves slow, if at all, and when it does move, it just is not doing anything early enough, at least. This is not just South Africa's problem. Witch hunts are still happening today in places like Ghana, Nigeria, Tanzania, India, Papua New Guinea, like places like the US. Even though it might not be as blatant as people being burned at the stake, there's still prejudice against people that are not part of the mainstream religion. Now, in all these other places on the continent, there are people that actually will enact that belief, that will go ahead and kill you because of what they believe. So, this is not something that we're just talking about. It's just not fictional. This is real life. It's fear mixed with ignorance wrapped in belief. And every time we don't talk about it, we give it power. So, yeah, you guys, now that you've heard all of this, please let me know what you think of this episode. Please make sure you're taking care of yourselves. Usually, these episodes are very heavy and gruesome. So, I'm hoping that you guys are taking initiative to at least take a break once in a while or just, know when it's too much. All right, you guys, thank you so much for listening. I appreciate y'all. Bye.